It's quite an awesome thing to actually physically walk into a wind tunnel and walk around it.
This is the fan. This is the fan that provides our wind speed.
It was actually a little bit of a moment when I walked in here.
F1 never stands still.
Without doubt, you know, we were in a league of our own.
Every day's different. You don't ever walk into this business and it's the same.
Sometimes a wind tunnel can give you a big thumbs up or a thumbs down.
The most dominant cars of the early to mid 1990s.
The 9 championships we have to our name were created here.
Coming in here in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, was a pretty haunting experience, I've got to say. So here we are in good old Wind Tunnel 1. So I started my career in Tunnel 1 in January of 2004. So literally walked this path in 2004 because we were just in the process of building Wind Tunnel 2 then. Started my career as a wind tunnel technician in this very building. After leaving the race team at the end of 2003, I'd spent 10 years on the race team. I started here in the Wind Tunnel and Wind Tunnel 1, which is still a pretty magical building for me because we did some truly amazing things in this building over the years. So we built an FW26 in 50% scale and put it in this tunnel for the first time. 24/7, 2 tunnels running. It was a very, very busy period, working really closely with the model shop and the model shop technicians. Yeah, just cycle through that constant aerodynamic evolution.
So I've been here over 20 years now, and I spent my whole time in the wind tunnel, so I've lived and breathed the wind tunnels. I came here straight from university and started working on the wind tunnel models. So yeah, watching the British Grand Prix with my dad around the 14 era was really special. Working in the facility that was used to develop the car is really good.
This wind tunnel, when it was built and first installed at Didcot, was as good as anything in Formula One and certainly gave us an advantage. You know, we had obviously a fantastic aerodynamicist in Adrian Newey, but he had one of the best tools to use, and at the time this was a state-of-the-art wind tunnel.
In theory, it gave you the competitive advantage over your competitors. We had the wind tunnel on site, so we could react very quickly. We could react to other teams if we wanted to. I mean, in theory, we could develop ahead of the curve by being on site all the time. We could do anything we wanted to do at any one point. All it was time, which obviously was a constraint.
I joined a few months after the wind tunnel had moved from Didcot, so I was involved in the commissioning of the wind tunnel itself and all the calibration and sign-off of the new facility.
Well, I think we've got some interesting drawings here and information. So I think the beginning of the life of Tunnel 1, which would have been at Didcot, and the picture of...
Yeah, I remember those. Those came down actually.
They did, yeah, that's right, yeah.
I didn't realise you were that close to it.
We're right underneath it, so on a windy day, you'd actually get wet from the cooling actually spraying. The car would be covered in lime scale, so...
So I didn't realise this either, exposed section all the time.
Yes, it was all exposed. At the time, for us to move sites was a big thing, especially with an F1 team. We were coming to Grove, a much bigger site for us. Obviously, dismantling of the wind tunnel, obviously it was literally gas-axed apart, which was quite an interesting thing to see. It looked quite crude, but arguably it was the best way of dismantling it.
Here we are under the belly of the tunnel. So this tunnel section, you can see there's some corrosion on the tunnel section, and that's because it used to live outside. So when we very first moved here, and obviously we broke this tunnel down, moved it from Didcot, so we actually had to break this tunnel down in sections, drive it the wrong way up the A34. Due to its size, it couldn't go underneath the bridge at Didcot. We had to take it down to Abingdon because the bridge is higher there, go underneath the bridge and then come back down the northbound carriageway, but heading south to get the tunnel in sections here. So this tunnel, when we very first moved here, we would be stood outside, and it lived outside here for many years before we put this acoustic shield on it.
At my former place, we were talking about moving sites and moving the wind tunnel, and the conclusion we came to is to move a wind tunnel would be madness. It would take years of performance out of the system because it is such a complex and integral tool in what you're doing. And if you asked an aerodynamicist, I'd like to shut this down for a day, they'd have a panic attack, let alone whether or not we took it down for several weeks while we moved it on the road and then recalibrated it again. So the fact that this organisation did that and then won in '97 is just a testament to how strong it was back in that era.
We've got the drawings here of how it was taken apart with the measurements they took for welding on the eyelets for lifting it and then actually craning it apart piece by piece back onto an articulated lorry and then bringing it over to Grove, and then obviously the drawing below gives us all of the information of how they put it together, the weld lines and the joints and the doublers they had to put in place. And of course it was probably not quite the same construction, if you like, because obviously you had to put reinforcements in places where we'd cut it.
Of course. Do you know what this was on top?
Again, that's the cooling, I think, for the...
I suspected that would be the case. Because this is the hard thing. When you expose it like that, you are a lot more exposed to the elements.
Exactly, so hence wind tunnel 2, totally enclosed, totally temperature controlled inside and out. On a winter's day, it was very, very cold in here. It really was chilly. And the guys would wear polo suits and a lot. It really was a different environment for them.
You really do have proper, this is, so everyone knows, a rolling road manual from the 90s. This is fantastic.
When this wind tunnel was first brought online by Williams, it was a huge advantage to the other teams. Most F1 teams at the time were going to university wind tunnels, much smaller scale, so to have access to your own facility on a larger model scale was a significant advantage to all the other teams.
And it was a huge step from a technology point of view and system point of view over our original tunnels. So without doubt, that aero development that we had in 92, 93, 94, 95 and 96 was absolutely down to this tunnel. This was a key facilitator in those multiple championships that were and gave us, you know, the most dominant cars of the early to mid 1990s.
A few years after I started, Williams had a new technology delivered, a new rolling road, which allowed us to essentially run the wind speed at a much higher speed than any other teams, and that was a big advantage in terms of our understanding, our correlation to the racetrack, and we had that advantage for a good few years before other teams caught up with similar technology.
It's quite an awesome thing to actually physically walk into a wind tunnel and walk around it, this big tube. It's quite awe-inspiring how it's set up and what it does.
This is the fan that provides our wind speed. So that's how you inspect it. When you're in here inspecting the fan blades, you've got to push it round, so literally. So you'll probably see, as I'm rotating these fan blades, there's quite a lot of marks on the fan blades. Every time something hits one of these fan blades, anytime we notice any damage at all, we catalogue it. Normally a date and a time and a little highlighted area on the fan blade, so that you know it's existing damage and you're not reporting damage that's historical, really. So yeah, there's quite a bit of, obviously these fan blades have been in here a long time, so there's quite a few notes on these fan blades, so I think each one tells a story, really. Yeah, you have to be very careful in here, because the PIV solution we use, the medium we use, can leave a slight residue that is a little bit slippy, so you soon know about it when you've slipped over in this tunnel, which I've done many times. Tunnel's growing in section all the way down this point, and it pretty much comes to its largest section as we come through this set of turning vanes at the bottom here. Now here's a challenge. I used to be able to fit through here. Oh, thankfully still do.
When I first arrived at this wind tunnel, it was super impressive, and it's taken a long time to really appreciate all the technical elements that go into getting the data out, and how many thousand systems have to work perfectly to get an accurate wind tunnel run.
And then to watch the rolling road and watch the actual model work, and it works like it does on the track. Heave and yaw and pitch and roll, and it does all of those. So it's quite an awesome thing to see and to watch. And again, it's real life, so the wind blowing through them and things moving and obviously braking and disappearing down the wind tunnel, it happens. So it's quite a spectacle to watch.
And coming up these stairs, these are the stairs that I first walked up in January of 2004. And then this is the tunnel working section. So this is obviously our door that we can raise and lower, which allows us to get the wind tunnel models in. 2 tunnel technicians would work and literally work on the left and the right hand side of the car. And those 2 tunnel technicians would be responsible for the running of the tunnel. So literally setting the tunnel in motion, a predetermined run plan that would be written by the Aero Test Facilities Group. So all components are designed by aerodynamicists, run in CFD first, and it's the things that show promise make their way from CFD then into the tunnel.
it's a bit of a love-hate thing. It's brilliant when you've got an idea, you've got a theory, you test it in the wind tunnel, it plays out exactly as you hope, and you can keep going with that. Sometimes you have the same idea, but the wind tunnel results would go completely in the opposite direction, and you'd have to really think about, well, why haven't I got the results I want? And you try to look into the data in more detail and try and understand what you'll do for your next iteration. So you put a lot of thought, a lot of effort goes into your idea, and sometimes the wind tunnel can give you a big thumbs up or a thumbs down. So it's quite a challenging environment sometimes.
People don't see it as the start of the journey. People see the full-size car. Everyone obviously understands what the full-size car does, and they see that running around the track, whereas the model they don't see. But this is behind the scenes, and it's just as important. Without the wind tunnel and the development within the wind tunnel, we wouldn't have a full-size car.
The tunnel we're now sat in has produced every World Championship car that has been a part of the heritage that I'm incredibly fortunate to be with today. So it was actually a little bit of a moment when I walked in here and just across the way thinking about it, reflecting on it. It's enormous to think about it in that way.
Without doubt, we were in a league of our own. Silverstone in 1992, we're on pole position by 1.9 seconds. To be able to build such an incredible structure as early as the early 90s gave us a huge advantage over our rivals and allowed us to produce, as I said before, some of the most dominant cars in Formula One history.
One of probably my highlights is a new front wing that I designed that I was lucky enough to actually then go to the racetrack to see it run for the first time and see the lap time delta coming on it. And the driver actually got out of the car and shook me by the hand and said, "That's a great front wing, we need more of those things." And that was, at the time, that was a great feeling.
So when I started, the team was owned by Frank and his family, and I had a real warmth for the way the team operated there. You felt like you were coming to work with your friends and family rather than coming to work for your colleagues. And the team still feels that way to me. It feels like I'm still coming to work with my family and friends. I mean, we spend more time in this facility than I do with my family and friends.
Frank and Patrick often came over to the wind tunnel. Frank in particular came over in the evenings with a cup of tea and had his evening meal here. He was very interested to speak to the aerodynamicists to understand what performance they'd found that day or what they were doing in the future, because he knew that it was a direct link to the performance we found in the wind tunnel and how fast the race car would be in a few weeks.
Williams, for me, has been a provider for me, and I've supported it back the other way. I feel I'll commit to this company wholeheartedly, and I have done for the years that I've been here.
I think the environment of designing a Formula One car naturally pulls people together with like minds. We always want to find performance and make that racing car quicker, so you create quite strong bonds.
We would come back from minor disasters in here where we'd lose bits of the model, or part of the belt texture would come out and wipe half the model out, and you'd just sit there as a tunnel technician thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do now? But we would always work as a team to come back from it, and it's, a lot of our modern core values are about excellence and teamwork and resilience. Well, I tell you what, you needed all of those in large amounts to work in this facility, whether that be a model change or a model update or a wind tunnel rolling road update, belt change, main fan motor out. There was never a moment where there wasn't some member of the team doing something pretty amazing in this building.
This has produced championship winning cars, and a lot of them, so clearly did a job very effectively. But yet now when we sit here, the way to really explain it is even the modern model, which is a 60% model, wouldn't fit in here fundamentally. It's when you see the size and scale that we've moved towards, we could actually fit a full-size car in there. We can't due to regulation sets prohibiting it, but the point is that's the space change we've had. The way we're testing the model, moving the model, the sort of boundary conditions we're working to are just incredibly different.
Unfortunately it's got to go, but I have to say it's with a bit of a heavy heart, because you look back at the relationships you made here with aerodynamicists and team members and that pursuit of excellence, and just to understand that it's come to the end of its life. Something like we said, we started off with it in Didcot. We assembled this massive structure in Didcot. We broke it down into pieces. We transported it here to Grove, erected it, and then recommissioned it, all of the work that we did to get all of the systems back up and running, all of the calibration that went into it. You know, it was a continual science project.
Having looked after both wind tunnels on site, going down to one wind tunnel feels a bit like losing a child, although don't tell my actual children. But it's for a good reason. Back in 2009, the FIA changed the regulations around wind tunnel testing, so we moved all of our aerodynamic development into Wind Tunnel 2. WA was formed, and we brought a huge customer base through Wind Tunnel 1. Customers from other F1 teams to touring cars. We even had a skeleton bob athlete attached to the bottom of the Sting, trying to change her body form to reduce the drag as much as possible.
F1 never stands still. F1 creates a different environment. Every day is different. You don't ever walk into this business and it's the same. It's never the same from one day to the next. And again, if we as a business need to evolve, then that's what we should do. We have to develop. If we don't do that, we're never going to win the championship ever again. So it's important to develop.
Although I've probably had a relationship with the tunnel for about 20 years, it's actually quite a positive thing for it to be demolished. I think it's a statement of intent for what Williams are planning for the future in terms of the new facility that's going to replace it. So although it might be slightly sad to see it go, it's quite exciting for what's going to replace it in the future.
In reality, this wind tunnel, since we've had the fortune of having a much bigger and better one, which is just a few meters away. In fact, I've just heard it far up in the background. We need to use this space efficiently for keeping our team together, because the team isn't 250 people anymore. We're into over 1,000. And when you're at that size, we need to use all of our site space really efficiently. So the decommissioning of it is, I think it's fantastic that we're even talking about it, that we're making sure we acknowledge that our history is based on these four walls, or the box section that's just to my right of me. But also acknowledge that we have a future that's bright, and a part of that is making sure that we acknowledge our history and build on it, which is what we're doing.
I think it should be remembered more for its championship winning days, but also it's a really immersive experience. It's a lot smaller than the modern wind tunnels. You know, you're really sat in the heart of it, so you hear all the noises, you feel all the vibrations through your feet. In the control room, you're sat above the turntable, so you know what speed it's going at, even without looking at any gauges. You know how fast it's going, how healthy it is from the noises. You get a real sense of energy transfer, which you don't get so much with the modern wind tunnels. You're sat further back from them, and also soundproofing's improved a lot over the years as well. But this is the championship winning wind tunnel, which should be remembered. It's a shame it's too big to put in a museum, really, alongside some of the championship winning cars.
So the big transition was really from physical testing only to now what we do today, which is a mixture of using computational fluid dynamics, easy for me to say, simulation and real-world testing. And the real-world testing is there to almost just keep you guided on the right pathway. The other tools are there to make sure that you're exploring a much wider base than you were previously. So that's how it's migrated in the last 20 years. 20 years from now, I suspect it will move more and more in that direction, where physical testing is quite slow, quite laborious by comparison, but provides you really good guidance. And will we get rid of wind tunnels entirely? Unsure. Will they be used less and less in favour of computation? Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's sad to see the Wind Tunnel 1 go. It's been with me pretty much all my life at Williams, ironically, from the very start to where it is today. Obviously, the last championship we won was from Wind Tunnel 1, which was 1997. So again, it paid dividends, it gave us reward. So to see it go is quite sad.
Maybe as it is taken down, maybe we need to take a little bit of it home or something and have it sat in my garden shed or something, and every now and again just pat it on the side or something and remember all of the effort and you know, brilliance, the amazing people that have had input into this facility.
No, I'm not passionate about keepsakes as such. My garage is full of lots of stuff already, so that probably doesn't sound very right. So it probably sounds like I've taken. No, I haven't done that.
I guess if you wanted to take a cherished piece of the tunnel, it would either have to, for me, it would either have to be a rolling road roller, which is a 2 metre wide, 2.5 ton steel drum. So I'm not sure I'd get that in the back of the car, and if I did, my wife would probably kill me if I turned up at home with that. But I guess having a fan blade would be a pretty cool thing to have, and have that sort of as some sort of modern structure sticking out my undergrowth in my garden would be I guess that would be pretty cool, and remembering all those times you were on your hands and knees in the dark. I guess a fan blade would be the nicest thing to have and remember this amazing facility.
We're privileged to have a lot of people that were part of that era here on site who remember it for what it was, which is a tunnel producing winning cars. I think it should be remembered as a foundation that created this team into what it is today. The 9 championships we have to our name were created here, and that's how it should be remembered. But those foundations are now being used for another era in our generation, another step towards things, and so they still remain foundations, they still remain strong, but they're for a different use.
So yeah, it's almost like a haunting environment in here. It's quite echoey, it's quite dark, and certainly when you were on a night shift and you had to come in here on your own to recover a bit of model part, which is the things that used to happen, you'd be working certainly on a late shift. We would always try and make as many tunnel runs as possible and remain as productive as possible. You'd look up just as a fragile part of the model was disappearing off. So quite often you'd have to come in here and get it. So yeah, coming in here in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, was a pretty haunting experience, I've got to say. Yeah, bit of a trip down memory lane, this one. I've certainly not been in here for a few years, and some of the memories come flooding back for sure.